Okay, so today we're going to talk about differentiation and how important that is for when you are delivering workshops in the community or in a formal education situation like a school or a college. So the basic definition of differentiation is the action or process of differentiating or distinguishing between two or more things. So you could argue that it's about finding difference, or saying that person has got blonde hair, that person's got brown hair, that person's wearing jeans, that person's wearing shorts. And the word differentiation can be used in lots of contexts. It can be used in business, it can be used in mathematics, but it's also used in education. And in education, it actually means something quite different, because finding difference or looking for difference in an education setting could actually be harmful and is considered a dangerous practice. You don't want to start marking your students out or your participants out for their differences. That's not fair, and it's judging your students. So we try not to do that in education. So what does differentiation mean in education? It's a theory, it's a framework or a philosophy which is supposed to enable students of all levels to attain their full potential. So in English, that means in a classroom or in a workshop situation, everyone is different. Okay, they might be the same in the sense that they've all come to your workshop and they're all interested in dance, but they're all individuals and they are all unique, and therefore that makes it quite a challenge to teach a group where everybody's slightly different. You can't expect everybody to learn at the same pace. You can't expect everybody to like everything that they're learning or understand everything that you've covered. So what differentiation means is that no matter who your learners are, where they're from, or how they learn, your job as a teacher or workshop leader should be to adapt tasks and resources and assessments to help everyone in your setting achieve the same. So by the end of the day, everybody has managed to achieve something, and hopefully at the same level by the end. Okay? And that's quite tricky, and that takes practice. Okay? And you will see in some of the workshops with your professional practitioners over the course of the module that they will do that, and they will talk about this word differentiation. Differentiation is not about isolating a student and just giving them one-to-one instruction. If you've got a whole class, you need to teach them all together. So it's not about ignoring one group to just focus on another one because they've got specific needs. It's also not about a student having complete freedom of choice over what they do. They have to conform to what's going on in the classroom with some allowances, but that doesn't mean that they do whatever they want. It's not about more or less work for the student, or for you, in fact. So it shouldn't create more work for the student, or it shouldn't mean, oh, you don't have to do that bit because you won't be able to do it. That's not fair, okay? So it's about providing an alternative so that they're doing the same amount of work as everyone else. And it is not a solution to our learning difficulties. You cannot fix people. Your job is not to fix people. Your job is to help people, regardless of background and regardless of ability, to achieve. So a student with a speech impediment You're not there to fix their speech impediment through your teaching, but you are there to help them participate and learn regardless of their speech impediment. So differentiation should be proactive. So you might not know the students in your workshop. You might never have met them before. So part of your first session with them will be watching them and assessing, who's strong, who might struggle a little bit, who might need a little bit extra help. Is there anybody with any special educational needs? These might be told to you in advance, but they might not. So be proactive and do a little bit of investigation in your first session. And there's some tasks that you can do to help find some of this information out. Always be prepared. Always think, if somebody struggles with that, then I'll ask them to do this instead. So it's about thinking ahead when you're planning your session. Differentiation often includes group work, so you can put people in a group and so that the stronger students can maybe support the weaker students, but that doesn't always have to be the solution. Sometimes people learn better on their own, and actually they learn differently when they're working on their own. So shoving people in groups isn't always the best way. Differentiation is more about formative assessment than summative. So that means it's more about the small tasks that you do in class rather than the final exam. The small tasks you do in class and how you adapt and change those to help the learners learn will naturally improve how they do in a final assessment at the end. So it's about changing small things in the classroom, in your workshop, than changing things for the final performance of the final exam. Lessons should have multiple activities and assessments. If you just do the same thing week in, week out, open your books, read this, or we'll play this game, we've played it every week, and then we're going to do this activity and we've done this every week. The problem with that is that not every learner might learn efficiently in the way that you've conducted that task. So you should have lots of different activities and working in lots of different ways so that everybody has a fair chance of achieving in that session. And then the last one, it seems obvious, get to know your students. Differentiation should be student-centred. So it is, if you've got the luxury of having students in a workshop setting over a period of weeks, get to know them, get to know what they need, and get to know what they like, and that can help you differentiate effectively for the students in your workshop. So some more examples, because I think it's quite hard to think about, okay, well, there's this big word, and what does it actually mean in practice? So you might have had experience of some of these yourself in class. So you might differentiate by time. So you might give a student slightly longer to do the work. So some students have slightly longer in exams. Or you might get an extension because you've got an identified need. The other thing might be you might deliberately let one group show back their work last, so they've got a couple of more minutes to complete what they were doing if you think they're going to do a little bit longer. Differentiating by task. So if someone is struggling, you might change a task slightly. So I've got a bad back, and when I go to yoga, my yoga instructor knows that and often gives me an alternative stretch when it comes to forward bending, because I find that really difficult. And that helps, or it might be to do with flexibility, or it might be, a student might need a little bit more help, and on your worksheet of parts of the body, you've given them a worksheet with a little bit more information on to help them answer it than some of the other students. Other things might be, you might alter the nature of the task. So you might give one group a slightly different brief. It's almost the same but slightly different, so that it helps them achieve that task. The third one, which a lot of people forget to do, and I think it's really valuable to do especially in a community workshop setting, is let your students or your participants choose a task. So you might give them an option of 3, and one might be quite easy, one might be a little bit difficult, and one might be quite tricky. And by doing that, they can select their own level of challenge based on how confident they are. And they might finish the first one and go, actually, I might start the second one now because I finished this one, it was really easy. And that way they're actually differentiating themselves, and they're making a choice. The worry about that is somebody might always pick the easy tasks and never challenge themselves, so that's something for you to watch out for. Or a student might pick a really difficult task, and you might have to advise them, maybe we'll start on this one and then we'll progress to that one, if you don't think they can quite manage that. And then the last one is by outcome. So you might ask students to create something slightly different so it's more suitable. So for example, I had a student with a speech impediment a few years ago, and instead of doing a presentation in front of the class, I asked that student whether they would like to pre-record their presentation as a video, so they're still speaking and they still had a certain time in which to do their presentation, but they had got the opportunity to do it a few takes, so if they were struggling with certain words they could edit it, and they did it that way. Or the alternative would be to give them something and a task that doesn't require them to speak, like a written a piece of work instead. So they're still achieving the learning outcomes of the session or the assessment or whatever it is, but they've done it in a slightly different way. And at first, differentiation might seem like a lot of work. As you get better at it and more practice at it, you'll find it easier, but it is an important tool to know about and to practice, because every student is different and there will be times where you will have to differentiate because people have specific needs. And especially in community settings where you don't know who's going to walk through the door, and you might have a mix of ages and abilities in your classroom, then differentiation is essential. If you want to find out more, I've put some more references on here. Sue Cowley's The Ultimate Guide to Differentiation is excellent, and it's got loads of help and loads of examples. And there's lots of online places, so the Teacher's Toolkit is a really good place to read articles and to download resources, and so is the Times Educational Supplement. So there's lots of different places to find a little bit more out and to find some resources to help you with differentiation. So that's differentiation, which is basically different ways of achieving the same outcome for your students.